In this chapter, we are going to discuss arrays. An array in PHP is an ordered map which consists of a list of keys and their associated values, separated by a comma. To define a new array, we simply associate it with the variable, like so. Let's simply create a new empty array and assign array keyword to it with the set of brackets. Now, this is one of the ways we can do it. Another way, I'm just going to override this empty array and use the square brackets. This syntax is available as of PHP version 5.4. So if you're not quite sure what version of PHP your server will run, you're probably better using this first one rather than square brackets. Although I'm sure with the time the square brackets will become more popular than just a simple approach, which has been around for quite a while. Now, this is an empty array. It doesn't have any keys or values inside of it. So let's quickly have a look at what the output of this array will be in a browser. We are going to use print R function, which will allow us to output or display the content of the array in a browser, and simply pass this array as an argument to this function. If we go back to the browser, refresh the page, you can see it gives us an array which is empty. It's only brackets with nothing inside. So if we go back to our editor, now if we try and associate some values, put some values into our array, let's say, programming languages. Let's create the array, and I'm going to use the new syntax, which is a square bracket, but feel free to use the other one, which is basically the array. In other words, it would be just array and then set of normal brackets, and just actually let's use this approach actually for now. Okay, and now we're going to start with PHP, then ASP, then what else? Ruby. What else we can put here? Java. I think that's going to be enough for now. So this is how we would put items into the array. So now this programming languages array is now going to be empty. Let's use this print R. I'm going to remove this content above. And let's use this print R with programming languages and see what this array contains now. If we go back to the browser, there we go. You can see we've got index 0. We've got PHP. Index 1, we have ASP. Index 2, we have Ruby. 3, we have Java. Why do we have index 0 rather than 1? Because arrays use 0 base indexing. Unless we obviously strictly specify the keys for the array. If there are no keys specified, then the default way of using the keys in PHP for the array is 0 base, so it always starts from 0. We can override this behavior by simply specifying whatever key we want. So let's say for PHP, I'm going to have 3. For ASP, I want to have 4. For Ruby, I want to have 5. And for Java, I want to have 6. And this is how we actually associate keys, indexes with their values. So as you can see, we're using this equal and greater than symbol. If we now save it and preview it in a browser, refresh it, and as you can see, now our keys are reflected in the output as well. If we go back to the editor, just to make sure, obviously at the moment we are displaying them all in one line using this print R function, but we can make it look a little bit better just using this HTML pre-tags again. So before the print R and after a print R, we echo the closing pre-tag. If we now save it, preview it in a browser, and you'll see now it's a little bit more readable. Basically, each item is on its own line. So we've got index and the associated value. Okay, if we go back to the editor, to return an item from the array, we use the name of the array and the index of the item we wish to return, and close within the square brackets. So if I just remove this bit here, and let's say I want this ASP to be returned, I'm simply going to use echo statement here, then programming languages, which is our array, sets of square brackets, and the index or the key associated with this ASP item, in which in this case obviously it's number 4. So if we now save it, preview it in a browser, refresh it, and as you can see, it gives me ASP. If we go back to the editor, and now if I change my mind and I want an item with the index 3, refresh it in a browser, and you see, there we go, this is our PHP now. So that's how you actually can return the values associated with a specific index. If we go back to our editor, an array where we strictly define the keys is called an associative array, or multidimensional array, in other words. Index or key of the array, which you can see obviously these ones here, can be either an integer or a string. And let's have a quick look at how we can do it with a string. So if I'm just going to, actually let's remove everything here and create a new array called languages equals array. And inside of this array, we are going to have en as index for English. Then we're going to have fr for French. Then we'll have de for German. Then we have es for Spanish. And let's have pl for Polish. Okay, so now we have our associative array, and let's quickly echo and then pre-tags. Then we're going to use print r and put our languages array as an argument, and echo and closing pre-tag, just to make sure that it's all nicely formatted in a browser. If we now save it and preview everything in a browser, refresh the page, and there we go. Here's our array with string keys associated with their string values. If we now go back to the editor, let's quickly create a sentence. Let's say echo, and we're going to start with the paragraph character, let's say, and then new line, echo again, and let's use languages, and let's go for en. Again, we are using the index to return its associated value, and we're gonna go like this, and then on a new line, echo, we're gonna go within the double quotes, then space, obviously after the value that's going to be returned from this array, and let's go to type is the language spoken in the United Kingdom, and then closing paragraph after that. So now if we save it and preview everything in the browser, refresh the page, and as you can see, it gave me English is the language spoken in the United Kingdom. If we go back to the editor, let's change it to DE, for instance, and go back to the browser. And if we refresh the page, now you can see the English has changed to German is the language spoken in the United Kingdom, which obviously isn't quite true. So if we go back to the editor again, what else can we do with these arrays? One thing I wanted to point out, which is something that you probably have already noticed, because now we have string as index, as the key of the given item in the array, we have to enclose it either within a single or double quotes. Obviously, as long as we have integers, it's just numbers without any quotes, let's say 1 or whatever. But if we've got string, we obviously have to enclose it within the quotes. So that's one of the things. Another thing, let's just, actually, let's keep our languages array. I want to show you that arrays actually can contain arrays as values. So we can have as many levels going deeper and deeper, basically, with the arrays. So we've got now English, en, basically index, and let's create array for this specific key or index. So we're going to start, the first item in this array will be language equals English. Then we have comma, and then we will have currency. Then we have another array which will contain new currency, which is pound sterling, and old currency, which is also pound sterling. So that's, as you can see, we've got first level array, then we go deeper into second level and third level eventually for the currency. So that all this is associated with this en index. For French, for fr, we're going to create another array, and this one will have also language index, and language will be French, and then currency will be another array where we define all and new one. I'm just going to close this first level array here for this French. And we have new, which is euro, and the old one, which was franc. And then comma, obviously. Remember, they're always separated by comma. You can leave the comma after the last item, but as it's the last item, you simply usually gonna be leaving this without the comma. Then we have DE, which again will have an array as a value associated with it, and then language, index German. Then we have currency. It will be another array which will have two items, new, which is euro, and old, which is Deutschmark. And then we close this item. Actually, it's DE. UTSCHE. I think that's okay. Okay, then we have Spanish as well, obviously. I'm just going to scroll up a little bit. Let's create a few new lines so we can see things clearer. Another array, and we have language. I'm just going to quickly fill it up rather than continue with this video. I'll get back to this once I'm done. So my array is now completed. As you can see, I've got all these items going down. So what we've got here is the structure that we have in place. Basically, is the top layer of the array is basically the index, which represents a given language, and then we have array associated with it. Inside of this second layer of the array, we have language and currency indexes. Second one, the currency, also contains the array, which contains two items, which is new and old, and its associated values, basically. So if we now try, if I just go back right to the bottom of it, and just simply echo, and let's use these pre-tags as well to format it, print R again, and we're going to pass this languages array through, then echo, closing pre-tags, so that we can easily see it in the browser. If we now go back to the browser, refresh it, and there we go. Here's our array. We've got EN for English with the currency pound sterling for both. Then we have French with language French, and currency we have euro and franc. Same for Germany, we have euro and Deutschmark. Then we have Spanish, euro and peseta, and Polish zloty for both. So this is how it's working with the multidimensional arrays, which contain arrays, obviously. If we go back to the editor, now have a look at how we actually can retrieve all this information from this within this array. So I'm just going to echo, I'm taking languages, and I'm going for the index in between a single double quotes en, because I want to take the item from the English language. And what do I want? I want language. As you can see, I'm using two sets of brackets. First one indicates the first layer of the array, first level of the array, basically the index of this first one. Then once I'm inside of this array, if I just scroll up a little bit, once I'm inside of this array, because this is going to be the returned value from this first expression, then I have access to all these items, these two, basic language and currency. So what I'm doing is I'm going for the language, so that should return this English here. If I now save it and preview that in a browser, refresh the page, and there we go. Fair enough, I've managed to get English from this array. Okay, now if I change this to FR rather than EN, if we go back to the browser, refresh, the language for this specific index is French. If we go back to the editor, what else can we have? We can have currency. If I just use currency here, because the currency is also an array, I'm going to get the array. If we go back to the browser, it will tell me that obviously I'm trying to convert array to a string. Because I'm using echo, I'm obviously expecting the value returned from this specific array to be a string. If it's not, this is what I'm getting. I'm getting this notice, this error, basically telling me you can't convert array to a string. You have to have string. So what we can do instead is use either print R to return the value of this currency array. If we go back to the browser now, you can see it gives us new and old, and that's an array. As you can see, it's telling us that it's an array. If we go back to the the editor. I'm just going to reverse it all back to echo, because rather than actually returning the array from currency, I want to know what is the new currency in France. So if I'm just going to go back to the browser now, because obviously the value associated with new inside of the currency array is the string, so I can simply echo this in a browser. If you go back to the editor, now let's change it to PL for Polish, and we've got currency. What's the new currency in Poland? If we refresh, it's Polish zloty. So as you can see, using arrays, you can basically have a whole collection of the records stored within the array and easily retrieve the information you are interested in. So that's how you basically retrieve the information from within the array that contains further arrays as well.